Check out FlipsideGaming.com for all your gaming needs. Use the promo code HEROES to save 10% on all orders over $10 and support the channel at the same time. Hey there, this is John from Heroes and Legends, and today is day 5 of official Dominaria previews, and we have a lot of great cards to look at again, so I want to get started pretty quickly. Just a fast reminder though, if you're looking for a way to support the channel and what we do here, just check out the description below. You'll find a few ways. Our Patreon page is linked below. You'll also find links to products on Amazon. Once you go through that first link, anything you buy on Amazon, no matter what it is, will get a small percentage for the channel. And then finally, Flipside Gaming still offering a promo code for our viewers. You can hopefully save some cash while you support the channel. And as always, thank you not only to the folks that look at those links, but to all the viewers. You all make the channel successful and what it is today. So thank you, and let's get into it. Blessed Light. Waiting for instant, common, exile target creature or enchantment. When I see this card in a pack when I'm drafting, it's going to look just like the picture. It's just going to shine like that in my hands. So this is awesome for limited removal. It's 5 casting cost, sure, but at instant speed, you won't mind, and it's super versatile. It exiles the creature or the enchantment you're targeting, so that's good because that will be relevant with some mechanics in this set from what we've been seeing. And also, too, just the versatility of taking out a creature or an enchantment, which could be a saga, perhaps. It's going to go off when it gets to 3 and do something really bad to you. So that versatility is going to be very, very welcomed. This also makes sagas maybe a little bit worse because this is a common. Granted, players will not always have this in their deck, but if they do have it and it's available to them, it's also splashable, by the way, for 1 white. Then they're going to be trying to play this because it's just really good creature removal, and then your saga could be collateral damage. So that's something to think about with this too. I think it's a little too expensive for standard because there's other cheaper removal spells right now out there, but you're going to be really happy to see this. Even first pickable in some draft packs. As a matter of fact, a lot of draft packs probably that it shows up in, honestly. Academy Journey Mage, a blue and 4 human wizard common 3/2. This will cost 1 less to cast though if you control a wizard. When this enters the battlefield, return target creature an opponent controls to its owner's hand. So you can't hit your own stuff, but that's okay. I am a sucker for these cards that are going to bounce one of my opponent's creatures while giving me board presence at the same time. No matter what Wizards wants to cost these at, I am always ready to play them any day of the week. And 5 for me is just fine. I'll play this for 5, bounce my opponent's best creature and get a 3/2 on the battlefield. I'm totally cool with that. If I get it a little cheaper because I have a wizard in play, well, even better. This is another really good common, not necessarily always a first pick, but I do think it's a high pick in a lot of packs in draft, and it's just going to be really good for you in draft and CL generally. Tetsuko Umezawa Fugitive. This is a blue and 1 legendary creature, human rogue, uncommon 1/3. Creatures you control with power or toughness 1 or less can't be blocked. That includes this creature. So, Gathering Magic revealed this card today. If you are a big fan of lore, check out that article. They talked a lot about the lineage of this character, and if you played Magic for a while, you're familiar with the name, obviously, from cards like the ones you see on the screen here. As a matter of fact, Tetsuo actually defeated Nicol Bolas back in the day. Yep, that 3/3 right there in the middle defeated Nicol Bolas, which is pretty crazy. So check that out. There's a lot of good information in there. Now, the card itself is really interesting to me. Let's talk about standard first. It's really cheap. It is unblockable, basically, as long as its stats don't change. And any other creatures with 1 power or toughness become unblockable. That does open up a wide range of different things for you, and tokens are the first thing that comes to mind. So if there's a token generation deck at some point, and there are a lot of options for that in standard. I mean, vampires can generate a lot of tokens. I mean, this set's bringing sapperlings. It looks like white's going to have some small token generation here too, not to mention goblins. So there's some different directions that you could go. Could a go wide deck with a lot of small creatures actually be effective in the standard environment? If it's fast enough, who knows? What's strange is if you're relying on this, then you're probably not using Anthem effects. And usually those type of decks excel with Anthem effects, but this is a different way of looking at it. I think there's a brew here. Is it a good deck? I don't know yet, but I do think there is a brew here. Aside from that, though, limited, there's a lot you can do with this card. I mean, lots of small creatures with small powers or toughnesses that are going to be able to get across their damage when this is in play. The only thing, though, is if there's only, say, 1 of these in your deck, you don't want to rely on this as your win condition, the only way you can actually get your damage across. But it does appear, again, there's going to be some token go-wide strategy, so there's probably other things you can build around, say, in a draft, for example. this might not be quite as good as sealed as draft if you can go in and try to draft around this card a little bit. In Commander, there's just so many things you're going to be able to think of to do with this card. Off the top of my head, Doran is one that's already a very popular commander. Master of Cruelties, that's an interesting combo, right? Knocking somebody down to 1 and there's basically nothing they can do about it. It's pretty cruel. So I'm sure you can think of a lot more, but I really like the design here. It opens up a lot of avenues. The Antiquities War, Blue and 3, Enchantment Saga Rare 1 and 2. Look at the top 5 cards of your library. You may reveal an artifact card from among them and put it into your hands. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. 3 artifacts you control become artifact creatures with base power and toughness, 5/5 until end of turn. Let's talk about limited first with this one. In sealed, it might not be great because you won't always have enough artifacts, I don't think, for this to be good for you. Draft, you have a better chance. If you can draft this a little bit early, then maybe draft around it a little bit, pick up some artifacts, that'll be good. But remember, it's not just any artifact, because if you have, say, one of these in your deck, and you just get a bunch of random artifacts, then if you don't draw this, those random artifacts are not going to do a lot for you, right? So that would not necessarily be a good draft strategy. But if you pick up a lot of relevant artifacts, artifact creatures maybe, even if they're small ones, then this card gets a little bit better and could lead to maybe some big turns. Now, even if the 3 never happens, being able to dig for some relevant artifacts or creature artifacts is not a bad thing for 4 mana. So that 1 and 2, not horrible by any means for what you're paying. And then really the big payout, of course, happens with 3, and maybe you get a big attack in. Now, it doesn't give your creatures evasion, though, but whatever they do have when they become 5/5s will stick around, so that's important to remember. So until we see more of the set, it's hard to 100% evaluate what cards you're looking for here, but I'm sure there'll be some reasons to play this. Not always going to work out for you. It takes a very specific deck, and I would not make this my main win condition. I think it's a little too high variance. I would want other win conditions in my deck, but this could be a good support, maybe secondary win condition in a draft build some of the time. Standard, does it get there? Well, there are a lot of interesting 0 casting cost artifacts, like Ornithopters, for example, Mox Amber in this set. And we know there's a lot of artifact power still sitting around that Kaladesh block. So, I don't know, maybe an Izzet deck that's running a lot of good artifacts, and again uses this maybe as a backup win condition, or just to have a big play here and there. It could be interesting. Again, I do think it's a little slow for Standard, and you would want other ways to win the game. So maybe that's through like Thopter tokens or something like that. And perhaps it's more of a revitalization of some of those, like Izzet Artificer decks that we saw a while back in Standard. So I don't know, maybe. I don't think this card alone is going to do that, but there are a lot of other artifacts that could be interesting coming in with this set as well. So I'll give that one a possible, but I'm not really sold on it. Now, again, where this card could really shine again, perhaps as Commander, if you do have an artifact build there. And there's a lot of popular ones that you see around right now. So it could slide into some of those for just some extra utility. All right, Josu Vest, Lich Knight. 2 black and 2, legendary creatures, Zombie Knight. This one's a 4/5. Has a kicker, black and 5, menace. When this enters the battlefield, if it was kicked, create 8 2/2 black Zombie Knight creature tokens with menace. You see the token on the right there. And yeah, by the way, this is a rare, not a mythic. It feels mythic, doesn't it? But it is a rare. So this is Liliana's brother that she accidentally turned into a lich. So I'm sure this will lead to an awkward reunion at some point. But the card itself is pretty decent. I mean, a 4/5 for 4, granted it is 2 on color, also gives you menace. There's a lot of power behind that. It's a knight, which might be relevant too, thanks to other cards in this set. But even if you discount all that, just imagine playing this in Standard for its base stats, 4/5 for 4 with menace. It is legendary. That could make deck construction perhaps a little awkward, so you'll have to figure out what deck it fits into and how many's the right number. I can't really think off the top of my head a current deck that just wants to slide this in, so I do think you're probably looking at a new build. A lot of people have high hopes for the Knight tribal build. I've been saying I'm a little skeptical, don't know if it can get there, but this is definitely one step closer if it does, right? Now that kicker is a big commitment. That's a lot of mana. So is that going to happen very frequently? Probably not. Although there is a card we're going to look at a little bit later that does make it possible maybe in a mono black build. And who knows, if there's other support cards that are coming, that mono black build could be a thing in Standard. We'll talk more about that in a little bit. But ultimately, pretty interesting card here. I think at some point, yes, this does see Standard play. Now, what else can you do with this card? Limited? Yeah, it's awesome for you there. Again, I wouldn't rely on the kicker unless maybe you're lucky enough to draft the card we're going to look at in a little bit. But even without the kicker, this is still going to be a powerhouse first pick for you in a lot of packs, no doubt. And in Commander, another just really strong creature, especially in a Knight build or a Zombie build. A lot of stuff you can do with this, for sure. Now, in Commander, you have a lot better chance of actually getting that kicker to work, too. Alright, the next card comes to us from an Italian language preview. It is Right to Belzenlock. It's 2 black and 2 enchantment saga. 1 and 2 create 2/0/1 black cleric creature tokens. 3, create a 6/6 black demon creature token with flying, trample, and at the beginning of your upkeep, sacrifice another creature. If you don't, this creature deals 6 damage to you. Now, it doesn't tap or anything. It deals 6 damage to you, but you can still attack with it and stuff, so keep that in mind. So, is this card any good? In Limited, I'd play it, especially if I have other sack outlets. If I have other cards that will give me benefit for sacrificing creatures, then this becomes even better, because if some way the 3 doesn't resolve, then I might be able to do something with these 0/1 tokens, and that's actually pretty awesome. When the 3 does resolve, if you still have those 4 tokens in play, you're probably in really good shape, and considering you only paid 4, even though it took a few turns for it to unfold, you might be in the driver's seat at that point. Now, even if the tokens don't exist, you probably still have a good chance of winning a race with this thing at that point, if your opponent doesn't have a way to get rid of it, a bounce spell or a removal spell, say. But even if they do, they've still got some benefit from this card, from the tokens, and as long as you have other things to do with them, it's really not bad for 4 mana. Now, beyond Limited, I do think this card's a little slow and a little high variance. Standard, I mean, you don't want to get beat by that token, and also, too, there's a lot of quick removal, a lot of ways that they're going to be able to either get rid of the saga or get rid of the token, and paying 4 for this and waiting for this to all unfold just feels a little too clunky. Now, I did tease that maybe there'll be a mono black deck in Standard, but if that's the case, I don't even know if this one makes the cut, quite honestly. I would love to see an Aristocrat-style deck in Standard as well. Again, don't know if this makes the cut, even though it does give you some things to sacrifice, so perhaps, but it just feels a little bit slow. Commander, there's probably more efficient ways as well to get tokens or get a big creature, right? So this doesn't feel all that great in that format, considering all the tools you have available to you there. Marwyn the Nurturer, green and 2, legendary creature, elf druid, 1/1. When another elf enters the battlefield, you'll put a +1/+1 counter on this. And if you tap it, you get to add an amount of green mana equal to its power. So, okay, this feels kind of interesting. Definitely if it's surrounded by elves, it could create some big mana over time. A little fragile, though, to begin with. A 1/1 for 3 is a little scary. A lot of ways to get rid of that before it can really take off. That makes me nervous for Standard. Here's the thing. If I had a dedicated elf deck in Standard, well, this might get a little bit interesting, especially if I had some big mana payoffs at the end of that curve. I don't really see that being a deck, though, in Standard right now. Maybe in the future, who knows. Right now, what I see is decks that will be running like Llanowar Elves to cheat out mid-range cards that are solid and economical a little bit faster. So your Carnage Tyrants, things of that nature. So I feel like this is probably a little too slow. Yes, Llanowar Elves do help you get to this faster. That's interesting. But I think at the end of the day, what I'm seeing from that build, and I do think there will be a Stompy deck build in Standard coming up, but I think it's going to be very mid-range focused. I think this is going to be a little too slow for that deck, believe it or not. So maybe it does find a role in a different style of deck in the future, but I think right now in Standard it does feel a tad bit awkward to me, especially considering that it is a legendary creature as well, so you have to take that into account. Now for Limited, I mean, this is still a 3-drop mana dork at worst, so that's not necessarily bad in your Limited game, especially if you're trying to ramp into some bigger things, higher curves. So this is a very good card for you there. Probably still a very high draft pick, as a matter of fact. So you'll really like it there. And you know what? Elf decks in Commander, yeah, this is just another tool to perhaps go towards making a large creature, even though it doesn't have evasion or anything. Or maybe more importantly, large mana for some big payouts. So yeah, could see playing some of those decks as well. I don't see why not. Now, there are elf decks, tribal decks that you'll find in other formats like Modern or Legacy. I just think this is too slow for those at the 3 casting cost, especially coming in as a 1/1. Primeval's Glorious Rebirth. It's going to be a black, white, and 5 legendary sorcery rare. And as a reminder, to cast a legendary sorcery, you need to control a legendary creature or planeswalker. Return all legendary permanent cards from your graveyard to the battlefield. Before we get into the card, I just want to point out another amazing piece of art from Noah Bradley on this card. And you might recognize some of those dragons. There's definitely another callback here, and I'll put them up on the screen so you can see them all. But yes, I love all of the little pieces of nostalgia that you'll find in the art and the flavor text in this set. It's really sprinkled all over the place. Now, for the card itself, let's talk about limited first. If you have enough legendary targets in your deck, then this will be good for you. This is probably going to be better most of the time in draft if you can draft a lot of legendaries, especially creatures, of course, as opposed to sealed, where your pool might be a little more limited. The trick to this is it's a tad expensive. You're going to want to play it later in the game when you have a lot of legendary permanents, probably, again, mostly creatures, in your graveyard, and just bring them back for a really big turn, maybe close out the game. But to do that, you do need to have a legendary creature or planeswalker in play even to cast this thing. So it doesn't make it super consistent, but if you have enough legendary creatures in your deck, you're probably going to be comfortable running this, and if you're in these colors as well, of course. Now, for standard, this is going to be really clunky, I'm afraid. It's expensive. It doesn't really do anything unless you already have legendary permanents in your graveyard. You have to have the legendary creature or planeswalker in play even to cast it. I just think it's too difficult to make work to your advantage for a competitive format like Standard. Now, perhaps where this will really shine, of course, is Commander. You'll have plenty of targets with a lot of different legendary permanents that you could recur. Maybe you could even do something where you mill yourself, get lots of crazy legendaries into the graveyard, then play this, bring everything out at once. Or even just playing fair magic. I mean, over the course of the game, if you have a lot of legendary cards, they go to the graveyard as you play, and once you get down maybe to those last two opponents or last opponent, you cast this, bring them all back, and really kind of reset your board state. That could be pretty awesome too. So generally, I really like these legendary sorceries, but they are a little difficult, I think, sometimes to make work, where Commander, at least you know you're going to always have your Commander to go to at least turn these things on. So that's kind of nice there. I think this might be the last legendary sorcery that had to be revealed. Now, Noah Bradley did say this was his last piece of art, so I'm assuming this will be the last one. Cabal Stronghold. Okay, this was the card I was alluding to earlier, where perhaps this could be the catalyst for a mono-black deck in Standard at some point. If not now, maybe down the road. But it is a land, rare, tap for colorless mana. It doesn't come into play tap, that's nice. 3, tap, add black mana for each basic swamp you control. So I'm thinking just for starters, like 3 of these, bunch of basic swamps, and then you throw in Liliana's Brother, maybe Belzenlock, and who knows, that's the beginning of something, right? So I do feel like there are tools out there, and if someone could brew a deck that could hang with some of the more competitive decks that are out there right now, the sky's the limit with this card, really. Now, maybe it doesn't happen in this current meta, but I do think at some point this does see Standard play. In Limited, this could be another build around me card in draft. Maybe not as good in Sealed, but if you get this early, just go heavy into black and you'll get some advantages here. It's rare, you won't see it all the time, but it could be an interesting build here and there if you're able to pick it up. So it's definitely not unplayable there, although a lot of the time it won't make your cut because you won't be heavy enough into the color. Commander, yeah, there's a lot of ways to get fast mana already, but here's another one for mono black or heavy black decks, like why not? The other thing I was thinking about for just a moment was maybe Reanimation and Legacy. That's a mono black deck that's actually gaining popularity again. Lake of the Dead, though, I think is too good there. Usually those decks run 2 of those and a bunch of swamps. I don't really think they need something like this. It is impressive, though, that they did print a card in today's Standard that has us at least thinking about Legacy. So the power level behind this is good, even if it doesn't end up there. Alright, here's our rare land cycle for this set. These are the enemy colored check lands, sometimes known as buddy lands. Originally from Innistrad. I was a little surprised we were getting lands from Innistrad in this set at first, but I started to think about it and I was like, well, what feels Dominaria? Maybe Pain lands? But Pain lands have been reprinted a lot. I actually much rather see these, and they did a good job at turning these Innistrad lands into Dominaria lands through the art and the flavor text, as you'll see in just a few moments. Now let's talk playability before we look at all of them. Standard, yes, all day long. These are going to be staples in your Standard mana base for the length of time that they are in Standard. So if you don't have playsets of these and you're a serious Standard player, you probably want to pick them up sooner than later and try to get them at a good price, of course. Maybe once the set comes out and people start cracking packs, you'll find these at a relatively low price. So the Innistrad ones, they weren't necessarily cheap, not super expensive, but they weren't cheap lands. So these are actually pretty nice reprints and very welcome. And because they're good in Commander too, there's other things you'll be able to do with them outside of Standard after they rotate out and such. Limited, yeah, sure, when you open this in a pack, you might think, wow, this could have been a bomb creature that I'm not getting now. But, don't underestimate even stable mana bases, because if you're in these colors that you pick up, this is not going to be bad for you. A lot of times a stable dual land like this, you don't even notice it, but it does really good things for your mana efficiency and lets you cast your stuff on time. Especially good, of course, if you're getting a little more greedy with colors, maybe splashing a color, then they get stronger. One thing I will point out about these, though, these are better when you're like 2 colors. The more colors you add, these things slow down, obviously. So probably 2-color decks are going to really benefit from these more. They're great in 2-color decks. They're not bad in 3-color decks, but the more colors you add, the worse they kind of get. So that's something to keep in mind, really, for all formats. So first we have Clifftop Retreat. Looks incredible. Hinterland Harbor. I love the flavor text on this one. Isolated Chapel. Sulphur Falls. And finally, Woodland Cemetery. Alright, well, those are our cards for today. Now, tomorrow we'll be back with our Market Watch, which we always do on Saturdays. And next week, we'll have more preview cards to talk about. So I'm looking forward to doing this again starting on Monday. Between now and then, though, if any significant cards come out, I will do another video recapping them. But if they're just small things, I'll just roll them into Monday. So we'll just kind of see what happens. Until next time, though, hey, thanks for watching. Please remember to like, subscribe. Have a great day. Hey, thanks for watching. This video is made possible by the generous support of viewers like you on Patreon. Check out the description below for links to our Patreon page as well as our Amazon affiliate store, where a small percentage of all sales will also help support the channel. Finally, if you haven't had a chance yet to subscribe, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any new videos on Heroes and Legends. Talk to you again soon, and have a great day.